everyone, today I wanted to give you a little update on our compost system and how it's been doing now that we're actually using it. So if you recall, we had our compost system up at the very top of our garden. Our garden is on a very steep slope, and I found that we weren't really using it as much as we really should be, and that the kids were less than enthusiastic when we had to bring stuff up into the compost, because wheelbarrowing things and even just, lugging things up there is such a chore. So we decided to move the compost system down the hill. So when you enter the main gate, all you do is just hang a left and you're basically there. So nice and easy downhill. And then we just put our quail up at the top, so that when we're grabbing the stuff from the quail coop to be composted, it's a nice, easy wheelbarrow down the hill. So our compost system has 3 bays, which are 3 of these openings. We made them out of pallets and a very fancy door. It's very rickety. It's found with like some old wood pieces I had lying around. We've got some screws sticking out of it, but So the first bay is the building zone. So anything that needs to be composted goes in here. Leaves, pumpkins, we've got tons of pumpkins here. A lot of them have actually already broken down, which is great. And you can see here's like, some pretty mushy pumpkins. The food scraps from the kids' lunches, or even the aftercare snack program. Sometimes they throw their little cardboard snack boats in here, or snack trays. We get all the straw and hay from our Halloween celebrations. We've got some beautiful ash trees over hanging the playground area where the kids kind of eat snack and eat lunch. So we rake those up and we throw the leaves in here. So tons of stuff goes into this compost pile. But after a certain amount of time, this compost is ready to be composted. It's composted down, right? It's soil at this point. So some of it, like these larger pumpkins, is not ready to move into the next zone, but our next zone is the resting zone. Now sitting on top here is just a sifter. I don't really use it that often. I'll probably use that more in the summer when it's not like super wet, or we'll be sifting things like leaves and making sure that we don't have trash inside of that. Anyways, so this is the resting bay, and in the resting bay is where we take this compost, this beautiful soil, when it's ready, and we move it here to rest. Nothing gets added to it in the resting bay, save for a nice thick layer of leaves to kind of just to keep the warmth and to make sure it doesn't like dry out too much. But those leaves aren't being like actively turned or composted. This is something that I do not turn. I just leave it. It just stays until I peek at it every so often and see how it's doing. But this basically, if I were to pop this into a raised bed or in a hole for a tree, it's fine. It's compost at this point, just with some leaf litter mixed into it. Whereas this stuff still needs to be broken down. Our third bay, just hold our wagon really. It doesn't really get used that often. Sometimes we store our leaves there, but honestly, the kids come in and just dump it, and that's totally fine. Kind of a big mess over here, but it's compost, right? Like, who cares? Just all our straw bales and hay bales. So this bay occasionally will hold things like weeds or stalks from a tomato or corn, things that are going to take longer to break down, and honestly, we don't really compost those things. We do have access to a shredder, like a tree chipper, that I am going to try to use for the things like tomato stalks and the corn stalks next year, to see if we can kind of mulch that down to pop into the compost next year. Look at this gorgeous stuff. So it was pretty waterlogged. There's lots and lots of water. I hadn't turned it since the last rain. So this is going to give it a little bit more air so it can heat back up. We've got tons of sow bugs, like an insane amount of worms all buried in here. I love watching this, Band-Aid. I love watching the sow bugs like try and crawl up something and then they fall off. It's so entertaining. I left some of the compost in here still, even the good stuff, just because it's got, you know, tons of bugs and good bacteria in it, and to kind of leave for like a starter for this. But that's a pretty decent pile. Next, I'm going to cover it with leaves, again, to kind of insulate it, protect it, keep it, allow it to get hot. And the last thing I will do before being done with the compost is pop these guys in, and then again cover it with a nice layer of leaves. I'm going to do a little bit of mixing these guys so they're not just sitting on top, but they've all got nice big holes in them just filled with worms. So those are going to go back in kind of buried. But this took these pumpkins, let's see, what is it now, December 2nd when I'm filming this, and we probably put them in here around 1 month ago. So it was because it was after Halloween, maybe about a week after Halloween. So it's been like 4 full weeks and they're almost completely composted down, which is pretty fantastic. I mean, a really healthy compost system can take something from something even as big as a pumpkin down to dirt just so fast. So especially when it's, you know, filled with worms and filled with sow bugs and filled with pincher bugs and filled with bacteria and all the goods. All right, until next time, friends.